Hello, welcome to the Ascent of Mount Carmel YouTube channel. This channel is devoted to a reading and better understanding of the book Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross. Today we're on the second book, the 24th chapter. In the last chapter, as you may recall, St. John provided us with a list of 4 general categories of the visions of the soul. In this chapter, he breaks down the first category, spiritual visions. As you recall, these are images that we see without the aid of any outward bodily sense. The 2 types of visions are visions of corporeal substances and incorporeal, or also called separated substances. The corporeal visions deal with all material things that can be seen. We see them with the soul rather than the senses. So, with these visions, we see things that aren't present. The soul does this via a supernatural illumination from God. We see the visions by the understanding, which, as we have discussed, is the eye of the soul. These can be visions of things of both heaven and earth. However, in regard to heavenly visions, we see the things as corporeal things, which are more easily understood than spiritual things. St. John tells us that this is the type of vision that John the Revelator had of heaven that he described in the book of Revelation. He described things that are understandable as corporeal images.
Who was that riding? Tell me who that riding? Tell me who that riding? Just the book of the 7 seas.
The visions of corporeal substances are projected within the soul and seem visible as if they were being seen by the sense of sight. Just as the eyes see bodily visions by means of natural light, so does the soul through the light of understanding, which is supernaturally derived light. When God communicates these visions to the soul, it's as if a door is opening before the soul to a great brightness. It's like a flash of lightning flashing on a dark night that suddenly reveals things and causes them to be seen clearly and distinctly. But then it quickly passes and leaves us in darkness again. And in the same way that our mind can retain the memory of what we see during a lightning flash, the soul retains and can feel the images it sees. It does this through the fancy, which we've discussed in a prior installment. These visions produced an effect of quiet, illumination, joy, sweetness, purity, love, humility, and the elevation of the Spirit of God. These effects sometimes happen more, sometimes less. Sometimes there's more of one effect, and at others there's more of another. As we've stated in prior installments, the devil can produce these same types of visions too, but with the devil the mechanics of the visions are different. He shows us things to our minds through spiritual suggestion. An example of the devil producing a vision is in the Gospel of Matthew, where the devil is trying to tempt Jesus. Again, the devil took him up to a very high mountain, and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. Well, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, the devil did this through a spiritual suggestion because it wouldn't be possible for the devil to cause Jesus to see things with his senses. There's a great deal of difference between the effects produced by the devil's visions and those produced by God's visions. The visions of the devil produce aridity in the things of God, while at the same time it fosters pride within us. The images of the devil's visions don't leave a lasting impression of sweetness, brightness, gentleness, or humility on the soul. As we've stated in prior installments, these visions, even if they come from God, have no conformity or proportion to Him. So they can't serve as approximate means to divine union. We need to reject these visions. If we want to make progress, we need to use the only proximate means that we have at our disposal, and that's faith. We can't take any stock in images of these visions, and we can't lean on them for comfort or confirmation of anything regarding our belief. And if we let ourselves hold on to these things, or if we hold them in high regard, we will become chained to the corporeal forms and images which are things of the senses. We can only progress toward God by denying ourselves in all things, including these images. As we stated in the series of installments for Chapter 11, even if the images continue to be seen by the soul, if we properly ignore them and don't desire them, they won't significantly hinder our progress. As we also stated in Chapter 11, if we properly ignore the images, it doesn't really matter whether they come from God or the devil. It really doesn't matter.
Just out luck, just out luck.
If we ignore them, we should make progress. As St. John said, we'll make progress enkindled with yearnings of purest love for God, without knowing from where they came or on what they are founded. While faith becomes increasingly infused in the soul by means of our detachment, the love of God will also become increasingly infused in the soul. St. John said, "The more the soul desires obscurity and annihilation with respect to all the outward or inward things that it is capable of receiving, the more it is infused by faith, and consequently by love and hope, since these three theological virtues all go together." There will be times when the soul doesn't really feel this love because it doesn't come from the tangible bodily senses. However, at other times, the soul will feel fortitude, courage, and even daring that are stronger than we ever felt before. In order to attain the love, joy, and delight that these visions can produce, we need to have fortitude and love to stick with our self-denial of things of the senses and of these visions. In this way, we can obtain that love and joy, which doesn't come with seeing or feeling. Though it's incomprehensible, really, it transcends all things. By denying ourselves of these visions, we won't open the door to the devil, who might otherwise deceive us or cause us to become prideful. Also, remember, if these visions are true and come from God, we could be deceived by them because we have a defective way of understanding them. We discussed that in a prior installment as well. Now, the other category of spiritual visions are visions of incorporeal substances. And these require an even higher illumination called the illumination of glory. These visions are of incorporeal substances such as angels or of the soul. They are visions of things that aren't normally seen in this life. St. John said, "If God were pleased to communicate them to the soul in essence as they are, the soul would at once go forth from the flesh and would be loosed from this mortal life." For instance, God said to Moses, "Thou cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." Again, the Israelites believed that if they were to see God or an angel, they would die. "Let not the Lord speak to us, lest we will die." These visions occur very rarely, actually hardly ever, and only to a very, very few people when God allows it. With these visions, God totally withdraws the spirit from this life, and the natural functions of the body are supplied just by the grace of God. St. Paul apparently saw incorporeal substances, and he described them when he modestly referred to himself as a man that he knew. "I know a man in Christ about 14 years ago, whether in the body I know not, or out of the body I know not. God knows. Such a one caught up to the third heaven." St. Paul, in effect, was raptured, and he wasn't even sure whether he saw something with his senses or not. With visions of incorporeal substances, God bypasses the natural manner of communication. For instance, St. John of the Cross says that God showed his essence to Moses. "Thou cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And again he said, "Behold, there is a place with me, and thou shalt stand upon the rock. And when my glory shall pass, I will set thee in a hole of the rock, and protect thee with my right hand till I pass. And I will take away my hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face thou cannot see." Well, I hope you enjoyed this installment of Ascent of Mount Carmel. We'll be back again soon with another installment. In the meantime, please pray for the church.
Who's that riding? Tell me who's that riding? Tell me who's that riding? Just a book of the 7 seas.